Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Monday edition of bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Deep, in which I built, write, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. I build, and I built. If you're playing characters Gottwald, Max Saber, or Toril, this stream is not meant for you, because it will be full of spoilers. The rest of you are always welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link into the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20 for streaming. I use OBS Studio. Welcome back to the Earth mode, hovering perilously close to Neverwinter. The party has made it about maybe halfway through. I don't know. It's got it. I mean, physically they probably made it halfway through, but the battle is still yet to come. I honestly really enjoyed last session. It was a huge test to see if all of that stuff we talked about worked, and I think it worked rather beautifully. And I think we made it about as far as we're gonna make it. We basically completed the village portion of it, which was deal with the air elemental and capture the air elemental and then deal with the lizard folk tyrant, and they did both of those, and now they can just go onward to the stronghold, which I'm gonna really ask for some assistance in how to populate this castle full of the undead pirates, because I'm just running off of probably the attack that we already saw in Attack on Neverwinter. Yeah, by the way, it's I think it hit the 90s today, like low 90s here in North Texas, which is fucking insane. Like, obviously it gets hot here, hotter than a lot of places, but we still have a winter, a mild one, sure, but it's usually more like between 30 and 50 degrees right now in late February. But yeah, that's bananas. And then it's supposed to get down to the 30s tomorrow night, I think, which is some serious fucking whiplash. Our local weather person basically said that we just invited all the seasons this week, which, man, weatherman humor is just delightful. It's like it's the evolved form of dad humor, I think, in a lot of ways. And yeah, I'm still pretty tired from doing a lot of serious demo yard work yesterday. Spent pretty much all of my Sunday working in the backyard with a giant mattock. Shout out to Demnix for making a hilarious fucking like a Roll20 art asset out of my broken and tired body. I definitely appreciate that. Did not expect it. So in this tower here, I'm just gonna throw a puzzle. They can bypass it if they want, but assuming they want to deal with it, using what limited art asset I had, I said, well, all right, the puzzle it's a treasures stash that the pirates used, that the lizard folk never found or were able to uncover, and the dragon just never cared that much, I guess, to dig it out. So it's still here from when the pirates were doing their smuggling thing. Maybe like a little bug out bag worth of treasure. And I was going to go with a map of the kind of immediate area, like a topographical map, kind of like 3D and stuff, and it would have labels, so certain cities and islands would be labeled, and then there would be the ship kind of, and then the earth moat, you would maybe say Skyhold, and then there'd be a ship flying nearby or something. And I was just going to make it be a letter puzzle where the one thing they had to spell out would not be spelled out. Instead, it would be just a bunch of letter buttons kind of arrayed like a keyboard or something, and then they would have to press the right buttons in the right order to open the chest. And the one I'm leaning towards is something that they would know, but they would still have to like remember or look up, because obviously I write all that stuff down in their quest log. And I'm probably going to go with the name of the ship that the pirates use, because I've name dropped that a couple times, and it's in their quest log now, which the name of it is the Black Scourge. So I thought that was kind of my idea for a pretty simple puzzle. So in other words, there's not going to be any context. There's not going to be like clues written on the walls or anything, but hopefully it'll be context clues for the map, because other things will have labels, and then the one ship won't have a label, but just have a bunch of like letters maybe scrambled up by it or something. I guess I can't really do Scrabble, because how would the puzzle activate? I'm picturing it has to be like labeled like a keyboard, and you have to like push buttons, I guess, to make it work or something. Hopefully I can make it make sense. But that's just a little puzzle area and a chance for them to get some treasure, which... Let's see, what was I going to throw in there? Some potions, some spell scrolls. I was also thinking, yeah, the name of their ship would be harder. It doesn't really make sense that the pirates would know the name of their ship. Nobody would know their ship name. But yeah, zoo, cruise, there can be only one, whatever bullshit. Wait, I have it on here somewhere, don't I? Let's see if I've got... The name of the ship is what?
Noah's Ark to Zoo Cruise, there can only be one lightning bolt sound strike.
There you go. I think that's the name of the ship. Thank you, Mr. Reese. And I was going to put in gloves of missile snaring. Is that too sexy of a thing to put in there? I didn't think so. But I think the party is still... I don't know. They could still use some more magic items, right? In terms of attunements, some of them have... Twirl's got 3, Sabra's got 2, Mac and Gottwald both only have 1 each, and either of them could really use the gloves. So, I mean, I think I'm okay. And plus, they're not really going to get any treasure from the dragon. When I think about it, the dragon may bestow something to Sabra, so I could do it that way. But, like, they're not going to, like, kill the dragon and take the treasure or anything. And then there's really not going to be any treasure in the fortress because the dragon's got all that treasure. So that's what I was kind of picturing, having something in there that they could grab. It'd be nice for Gottwald, although when I read the rules, you apply your dex modifier, and Gottwald has no dex modifier. But you get to roll a d10, so... Also, Gottwald has some good reactions, is the other tricky part. So I could see Mac using these as well, just because he gets to do a d10 plus dex modifier. He's got a kick-ass dexterity. He's just as likely to get hit by ranged weapon attacks. So yeah, I could see either one of them using, which is nice, I think. They let the players fight over it. Yeah, the good ship password. I did think that there has to be a consequence where you can't brute force it, right? You got to put something in there. You didn't say the magic word. But no, you got to have some kind of, like, I was just picturing kind of a generic, honestly, my go-to for traps is Thunderwave, because Thunderwave feels like the classic, like, you just kind of, something gets blown up in your face, and it does thunder damage, so it's just kind of a sonic boom. It blasts everybody to the back. You know, it's not like this huge, complicated, like, poison gas seeps in there or anything. It's just, you know, pretty conventional trap that just knocks people back. So, little Thunderwave action. Let's see if I put my gloves. All right, where did my gloves go? I thought I just added them. Maybe the gloves are already in here. Gloves. Oh, they are in here. Okay. Ah, they're normally found in Care Allison. Okay. So they're there. Number 7. I know, magic gloves. Yeah. But they're not like fisting gloves. Fisting gloves? Punching gloves? I don't know. Really not a whole lot of magic gloves in here that I'm looking at, are there? It's gloves of swimming and climbing, which actually would be pretty good. Gloves of thievery, which just add to your stealth. Something from Candlekeep Mysteries called gloves of soul catching. Raises your con to 20. After making a successful unarmed strike wearing these gloves, you can use the gloves to deal an extra 2d10 force damage to the target and regain a number of hit points equal to the force damage dealt. Jesus Christ, that's okay, it's legendary. I was like, that's an amazing item. Or instead of regaining hit points, you can choose to gain advantage on attack roll, ability roll, or saving throw. That is crazy. Wow. Wow, they're not getting any of that. We may have to homebrew some cool magic, but he does have a magic axe. He does have a magic axe if he needs to do his magic weapon, so he shouldn't feel totally out, but it may be on the agenda in the future to give him something he can do with his gloves. We'll see. In building number 7, which is down here, Ogre Gauntlets. Yeah, I guess that is on the gloves. Does he not already have like a 20 strength though? Yeah, he's already got a 20 strength, so I'm pretty sure Ogre Gauntlets only gives you like a 19 strength, right? So I don't think Gottwald gives a shit. And this is why I don't think this is why I think Mac may take the gloves of missile snaring instead of Gottwald, because Gottwald's only got a +0 to Dex, whereas Mac's probably got a +5, so he would just get a lot more mileage out of it. I could give him something that lets him upgrade his horns too. That could be interesting. You gotta be careful though, because the reason he likes his fists and his horns is because he considers himself like an honorable dueler when it comes to enemies that are like sentient, I guess, or whatever, like, or that haven't surrendered. So he actually likes using like the non-lethal approach, which I also appreciate Mac doing. The other, I was gonna do the cinematic, more brutal and violent, where he was gonna kill the tribal leader, and instead just kind of downed her. So I respect it. Ring of the Ram, that's a fun one. So building number 7 is gonna be a vacant home, but it's gonna be kind of just a story location. They can read like a journal entry left from the pirates around the time that the dragon was coming back and they had to evacuate, just kind of telling a bit more of that story. Then we get to the castle itself, which I think I finished drawing dynamic lighting on. I did. We're gonna maybe look at making some of these areas a little smaller. Maybe like that, so we can still see some of the tokens. And I am okay with going pretty hard on the players and just attacking them right out of the gate. This is not going to be like a stealthy heist thing. I think the Black Dragon's probably been following them since they arrived, kind of maybe just feeling them out. And the undead would defend this fortress. They've got the high ground. They're just super Obi-Wan up here, being able to lord over the entire swamp village. So presumably they've been able to see everything. And he'd be a pretty shitty mob boss if anybody could just arrive at his pad and him not even know about it until on their front door, right? So I'm also liking the idea. We talked about this last week about the undead fighting the pirates, and then like halfway through the battle, like there's like so many undead, and the players like Jesus Christ, and then they all like go slack, and then like one of them holds his head up and says, the master will see you now, and like gestures to the stairs below or something. I just think that'd be badass, and kind of an indication that like, oh, this dragon's like a social scene now, which means in a way this is sort of the boss fight of the adventuring day, but not really, because we have one final coda we're going to include after they're done with this floating island, and that's going to be them actually discovering like finding Ned and just taking him out and get some information from Ned, basically, which I have not decided how I'm going to swing that. If I need Ned to be in a certain location, or if he's literally just going to be back in Neverwinter and we're going to do kind of an urban scenario or something. Could be kind of fun, especially if we can end up doing this chase sequence, maybe. If they can figure out like where Ned is, do a little investigation work. I don't know how involved we can be with that. Some of it might depend on the pacing of the session, because I could see us, for example, doing one session, getting all the way to the undead, like halfway through that battle, and then give him the tease about the dragon to meet you, and then like the next session we meet with the dragon, we do that whole social scene, then we go back to Neverwinter, and then I'm kind of on the clock to try and wrap up the whole Ned thing, so it'll kind of get tricky. But I do want the party to battle their way to this castle. That is definitely a goal of mine, and I'm going to start that because presumably they'll have to go up this path, which I've labeled as Area 8 here, which is just the main path up to the stronghold. And I don't know what kind of like siege armaments, defensive measures this castle would have, but it's got to have something fun to where I can pepper the players as they're coming down. At the very least, I could just have them all shooting, obviously give all these guys cover because they're up on the battlements. Maybe even do an advantage disadvantage system, because you can't be more advantageous than on an elevated position behind cover like that, and somebody who's lower down and like completely exposed. It's just a kill box here. So we could look at that, or we could include some kind of, I don't know, is cannons too much? Cannon fire actually going off? Maybe just catapults, trebuchets, ballista. I don't want to be too crazy about it. The fortress, it wouldn't really make sense they would have a whole lot of defenses, because the defense is the island itself being so, out of the way. It's floating in the air. They wouldn't have had to take on a whole lot of threats, but presumably they would have had at least something just in case those opportunities come up. But I like the concept of actually starting initiative and starting this fight down here, where the players are still approaching the castle. Probably once they get within, 60 or 80 feet or something. So I'm thinking like literally right where this number 8 is, they start like heading up, which is right at about 75 feet or so from the walls, 70 feet maybe, and actually put them in initiative, and then they start getting attacked, and I can treat that either like a layer action, legendary action thing, and then also have the enemies firing them, or maybe like enemies don't fire until they get a certain point, but really try and play up the fact that I don't know, I want to create almost like a World War II bunker scene, where like the enemy's in a fortified position, on an elevated fortified position, and the opposing force is just trying to run at them and conquer that area, which can be tricky because this is a fantasy world that has like spells and shit. And unfortunately, I don't think any of the undead have spells. Maybe we could make that happen, because that's, I think, what really starts tipping the scales back in the DM's favor when it comes to battlefields. Otherwise, I just have to do superior numbers. But I think as originally written, like in the original attack on Neverwinter, they did not have baskets full of scorpions. You're looking at the kobold trap things now. No, I think pirates would have traditional weapons. I don't think they have any actual spellcasters among them. In the initial attack, he's got 40 skeletons, a white, and a sword wraith warrior. We saw, in the previous assaults, we saw maybe a dozen of those skeletons and the sword wraith warrior, and then Bartholomew Black Dagger. But I teased the fact that they all like despawned and disappeared instead of their bodies sticking around, so I can reuse as many of those as I want. So we could just use a crap ton of skeletons. I mean, they've got a basic ranged attack, short bow, +4 or 5 to hit. If you give them advantage, I mean, that can definitely start doing some damage. Why roll 20 sometimes does not show up right there. So it's 13 and 13, is that right? So I mean, we could just throw a bunch of skeletons over here. I don't know why it does that sometimes when I control V. Like goes to the lower left corner. I don't understand. Why do you do that? There we go. It's something to do with the compendium, maybe having something in the search field. So I guess I'll ask all of you, what do you recommend for defensive weapons that I can rain upon the party, at least until they make it? Because one fun thing would be is to encourage them to run at the castle and not just sit here and have this long, protracted, kind of boring, like ranged battle. One thing I can do obviously is give the enemy, advantage and cover and all that stuff. But if I have like real siege weapons, like doing damage, hopefully the players will be motivated to charge up there. Gottwald surely would be. He's got nothing he can really do at range. Barrels of tar. Oh, that could be interesting. Like hucking, like catapult shooting tar and then lighting that on fire. Ooh, now we're getting tricky. I respect it though. I think skeletons are the basic shock trooper here. Let's see what the dynamic lighting. Yeah, you can kind of tell that there's targets up there. These guys, unfortunately, doesn't really look good on the. Scooch them back a little bit. Flaming barrels, flaming red barrels. I can have as many as I want in here. White would be probably a better stat block. I don't know if there's a good. Do you think I can get away with an undead spellcaster, or is that going to be too much? Because like, why didn't they have that? If they have an undead spellcaster at their disposal, then why wasn't that enemy at the assault on the Aboleth? Other than that, the players are now assaulting the home base. Maybe they just didn't get sent. They didn't pay enough to get the spellcaster. You didn't pay the premium package to get all of the pirates. What am I looking for? Creatures. Down to white. Why is white not here? WI GHT. I'm not crazy. What about an undead wereshark? I could also just take like any of the generic like priest or somebody, like any of those, and just turn it into undead. There's a sword wraith. Sword wraith commander. I must have redone. Maybe I redid the token art at some point. That's why it's no longer there. Maybe. Yeah, there it is. I must have redone it. Oh, that's a cool idea, Demon. Exploded corpses, initial damage in an area of stinking gas. Like those Diablo monsters or what, Left 4 Dead? Creatures explode. But I'm still having to like chuck them at the party. I need something I can chuck. I need a real chucker. Whites are significantly stronger than a skeleton. 45, so they've got like 3 times the hit points. Oh, they do have sunlight sensitivity, though. That's kind of shitty. So they would actually not be good up here. Because it is daylight. Okay. Maybe I won't use the white. And I think I'm not going to worry about having an extra like dungeon or something beneath the stronghold. I think because I like that idea of like them having like this is the big battlefield zone. We can fight in this area. A big protracted combat. I can, you know, do waves of enemies if I need to, whatever I want to do there. I need to put a door there actually. But I think after they're done there, you would just go down and meet with the black dragon. So I may still like throw a little cave map together just so we can see the dragon and stuff. So we're not doing literal theater of the mind, but I don't think I need to put together a separate map for that either. Try that out. Doors. Why do they have a door that goes into nowhere? I don't know. Some of the map features work better than others. That's a door over there, too, for some reason. Door. Are there any more doors that I'm forgetting? We got them all. Okay. Giant undead ogre just hucking over dead jerkos. You know, undead ogre's not a bad... Undead hill giant. Whoa. Do I want them to actually fight Black Dagger? I could. Yeah, how crazy do I want to go here? Again, they're not meant to fight the dragon, so I think I can go a little bit harder here than I would normally. And, you know, I can gauge their current resources, which they are kind of beat up right now, but they haven't even short rested yet. So they will short rest at the start of the next session. They'll basically get full up. And, I mean, Twirl's going to be fresh because he wasn't even in the last session. So I think they'll be fine going into this fight. And then I don't mind draining their resources quite a bit here. So they should be fresh as daisies. I think skulls that detonate fireballs impact. All right, these are just undead pirates. Everyone wants to go so exotic with it. Undead T-Rex vomiting zombies off the walls. We do love that undead T-Rex. I don't know how often we can pull off the undead T-Rex, though. Although it has been a couple of years. Just catapults like made of bones, chucking tiny undead creatures with like knives or something. I mean, there's still just basically conventional... I'm picturing just conventional pirates that were turned undead, so they would just use their own conventional armament. So, like, what armaments would there already be? This isn't... It's not like the whole thing is some mystical necromancer thing. I mean, I guess the Black Dragon did do some kind of ritual to turn them undead, but otherwise they're still basically just the pirates. They don't really have any kind of mystical powers of themselves or necromancy or anything there. So, I don't know. But I guess the question is the Black Dragon could have added some kind of extra effects to the defenses. I don't think there's any clues, unfortunately, in the book in terms of what I can do here. Yeah, it's just Scaring the Vile and his lizard folk minions. If the characters defeat or sneak past him, they have a chance to plunder his hoard. So it talks more about his treasure than it does any of the defenses of the pirate Skyhold, which, again, I knew that going into it. This was me just trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, I guess, in a good way. Trying to expand on something that was a little underdeveloped. Not that there's plenty of developed things in the book, but I had to pick something that was less so. Oh, the meat wagons. Demnix is what you're talking about. Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you played Warcraft Rumble on the phone, but it's actually pretty fun. I'm digging that one. And it's got all the fun Warcraft art and stuff, which I also enjoy. Yeah, the meat wagons could spawn more skeletons, I think. What was the Sword Wraith Warrior was just pure melee, right? I'm not opposed to the undead ogre, or it's ogre zombie, right? And that's actually a pretty classic stat block. I think I've seen that almost every campaign I've played. Just kind of your generic, like, big scary monster. Also, kind of an example of a boring one, though, in not some great ways. It's just a fucking meat shield, 85 hit points at CR2, but it's got no armor, so you're just gonna keep on doing damage. Only has one attack around. It can hit like a truck, but only the one attack. And of course, to insult injury, it's got undead fortitude, so not the most interesting monster to fight. But it's an option. What the hell's Black Dagger? He's in a different section, isn't he? Is he a named creature? Named NPCs, yeah. So he will definitely be here. I mean, he could be part of the boss fight here. Although, like I said, I don't think the players need to fight all these guys to the death. Now, he's a Revenant, but I would not give him his Vengeful Glare ability because he would not have sworn vengeance upon the players. In fact, it's really funny if he sheathes his weapon and just goes fist to fist with Gottwald, because his basic attacks is just fisting. And yeah, he has not sworn vengeance, so we will not do an extra damage. And can grapple the target, which is hilarious that he can do that. So they can do a grapple off. I did give him an ebony scimitar, though, just to give him some kind of weapon. Although the players, I'm sure, are going to want to loot it, even though that was not necessarily my plan if they actually get it from him. He's pretty strong, though. He's got really good saves, resistances, condition immunities, over 100 hit points, like just a different class entirely than like all his minions, which is why I would probably introduce him not right away. So I don't think we're going to use the whites, even though they're a good I mean, I guess I could ignore their sunlight sensitivity. The stink aura, like the ghasts. Look at any other named creatures here. Are we ever going to have a chance to use that skeleton shark jaw? At some point, we've got to use that thing. Sword Wraith Warrior did have a longbow. So actually, I could use them on the walls as well. The longbow's got 150. What does a short bow have for the skeletons? When can I start attacking with the skeletons? 80 feet. Okay, so that's a good indicator of when I should start opening the combat. So anything within 80 feet, they can actually attack normally. Plus 4 and 5 damage. I don't want to have too many Wraith Warriors, though, if that's going to be on there. One attack does so attack rolls against did have advantage. Martial for which isn't that the same as Reckless, kind of? Whites are fine indoors. Yeah, this is all outdoors, though. Barrels of Dragon Acid. Yeah, that could be good. Could I... could I use a spell as the equivalent? In terms of how to do the effect of that? Acid Splash would be a good one I'm looking at. Hurl a bubble of acid. Choose a creature or two you can see within range. Target must succeed on a dex save or take 1d6 acid damage. That's actually pretty good. So we could say that there's a catapult shooting acid barrels. And use this as a baseline. So maybe it can do it anybody within 60 feet. Dex save within maybe a square. Make it a little bit bigger. Well, 5 feet of each other. It wouldn't be limited to 2, but it would be probably a 10-foot square. So up to 4 if they were in like a square formation, maybe. Or do it hits the square and then hits 5 feet around the square. So that would actually be 3, 6, 9 square. That'd be a big ass radius. Which could be cool. You wouldn't have to do much damage either. You could literally just do it like 2d6 or 3d6 or something. As a damage. I mean, 2d6 sounds pretty low, right? It's only 2 to 12 damage. 3 to 6 is 3 to 18. That sounds a little more interesting. I guess depending on how often I do it. Do I do it once or do I do it twice around? They've got these things like set up on top. Maybe there's just one up here that they're operating this catapult with. I could put it like over here or something, and that's what's overlooking them, and then every round they have to deal with that until they can somehow get up there and deal with it. So I'm liking that. That's a pretty easy one to do, and you're probably only going to get like 2 rounds off before they figure out a way to deal with it. One thing I haven't paid attention to is what's the height here? How tall is this? Maybe this wall right here is 10 feet up, and then this tower thing is another 10 feet, so maybe it's 20 feet up. And then this is just rising up naturally, so that when you hit the door, this tower is only 10 feet above you, maybe, so it's actually not too terribly tall. Same with that guy. I might just keep things pretty simple that way. So white's going away. So maybe I like the idea of the acid barrel catapult using kind of a form of acid splash. Oh, there are some other ones. There's acid arrow. 44 acid damage. That continually does acid damage. Or Melf's acid. Oh, that's just the... I see. It's the same spell, just non-IP version. I like the AoE thing, though. And yeah, it probably would make the battlefield acidy. I don't know how best to rule that. Maybe if somebody like ends their turn in the acid for some reason, they would still take damage. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of just the one time. Because I think if it explodes, I don't know how much it would be. I think it would probably just be in that one square. Yeah, I'm thinking the tower. The tower is probably 20 feet off of this depth. Or do you think it should be 20 feet off this one? So maybe it's actually like 30 feet up here. You could do that. How many skeletons are actually in here? Like 20? They're all just skeletons? So many skeletons. Oh, there's another door in here. I forgot. Damn it. Nice door. How many doors are in this castle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's 20 skeletons in this castle right now. Plus Bartholomew Black Dagger. And then we could probably get away with like 1 or 2 other unique stat blocks. But try to use these in waves where I mean, there's no reason for the enemy to leave this fortress, right? They're going to make the players come to them. Now, there is a chance that I start attacking the players, enter them into combat, and they say, okay, no, we're out of here. And they just fucking retreat and come up with a different plan. That's also fine, I think. I would let them retreat and they could come up with some other crazy heist plan. And then, I'll have to legit put the various enemies in there. But whatever they do would have to be pretty tricky. Like if they want to go all the way across the swamp and like climb up here or something, that could be interesting. I would definitely be willing to hear them out on any of those plans. And I think, honestly, that can be some of the most interesting things in D&D when the players are like, all right, no, wait, you wanted us to do this frontal assault. You prepared for this, but we've got a better idea. And I think that could actually be a pretty cool idea if they do that. We think back to that, God, the session everybody references from our Tomb of Annihilation campaign, that Fort Belwarian, where they just fucked up the social entrance so much that I kind of kicked them out of the fort, and then that forced them to go into a completely unconventional way to get inside, even though there was almost like no barrier of entry in that entire place, but they created their own barrier of entry. So I need to try to look for a catapult asset I can use, perhaps. Give me a catapult. Wow, that's cool looking. there's your skull catapult. No, I need something that's just a normal. Yeah, in fact, I think this is the one I used for the pirates. Just a normal goddamn looking catapult. Not very sexy at all. Something like that. How big those things are, but it would probably take up most of this area. Alright, we put that on the map layer. There we go. Now you've got skeletons operating the catapult. So probably 2 or 3, maybe all 3 of them are operating a catapult. And then I don't know if they can shoot from these walls. I don't think so. I think it's just the towers are going to shoot from. And these ones will be able to affect. So maybe only 2 of them, so I can still have some skeletons operating, like just shooting at them from afar. What else? I feel like I need something in between a skeleton and Captain Black Dagger, because he is... Hey, Anders. He's a CR5 boss. Although, again, he's not going to have his Vengeful Glare, and he's not going to do extra damage with his fist. He's just a Revenant without a target at the moment, because that's how the Black Dragon hires him out as. Gives him a target to swear vengeance on. Or forces him to swear vengeance, I guess, on a target they hire. A Spellcaster would be good. Or just something that does something different than a skeleton, I guess. The white's just... White and Sword Wraith Warrior are both just, like, stronger versions of the skeletons, which I guess that's fine. But I think you could get away with an ogre zombie as just like, oh, it's the fat bosun or something. The first mate was so bloated. Or the cook. It was the cook. I'm just never a fan of the ogre zombie stat block. Ghasts, is that the one with a stench? Yeah. That's at least more interesting. Basically forcing con saves to become poisoned. Although, this whole area we just fought in has that swamp effect where they have to make con saves to become poisoned also. I don't want to go too far into, like, ghouls and stuff, though. I don't think that would really fit what I'm going for. I mean, we could go crazy and do, like, a hill giant, but I don't want to take away from the Black Dagger being the boss. So I need something that's weaker than a CR5. Revenant without a cause. Thank you. That is a good name for an adventure. Oh my goodness. That would be fantastic. Revenant without a cause. Help this poor Revenant. He needs to swear vengeance. Or he's got vengeance and doesn't know how to swear it. Seeing what all is actually in this stat block. So I'm kind of wanting to not use anything too exotic and too crazy because I do want to maintain the fact that these are just normal pirates that were transformed into undead. So I think they're all going to be corporeal. No ghost stuff going on. No real monstrous stuff. I could do like an undead parrot or something, but that's not really much of a stat block. Hmm. So I'm scrolling through and just seeing what all's here. Or just take something pretty simple like a priest. Wow, priest has like spirit guardians and guiding bolt. Jeez. What was the... What was like the skeleton archers are pretty effective? Are you talking about the literal skeletons just firing their bows, or is there a different skeletal archer stat block? Shoot, what was I thinking of? Oh, what was is there a deck wizard stat block? Like, what would make sense for a stat block for a pirate spellcaster? Like, they have a deck wizard on their ship, technically. We just kind of forgot about it. Maybe they have a pet undead sea lion. A swarm of crustaceans. A swarm of skulls. Now you're talking about what you to fire with that catapult. I mean, that would be pretty sexy. Just spawning enemies around you as you're trying to race up this hill. What is this from? Swarm of Skulls. Monster Manual? Really? I don't recall a swarm of... It's a variant of skulls? Yeah, it looks like the swarm of beetles. In fact, the stat block even says medium swarm of tiny beasts. I assume you mean tiny undead. Roll 20. I think it's just literally reflavored. Regular skeletons with bows. Yeah, especially if you make it where they, are just sitting back there doing their thing. But I think I'll have like two of them fire their bows, and then the other two have to operate this catapult that's basically doing like a sort of a poison spray explosion thing. Unless we can think of a different spell that would be appropriate. But I like the idea of them hucking like barrels of acid that's like exploding into acid on them. I guess you could do something like Tasha's Caustic Brew that Savra casts also. But that's an all line. That's not really an explosion. So I need like explosion version of that. Because I looked at Acid Splash, which I guess is fine. We can just do Acid Splash. It's just maybe a 3d6 version of that or something. It's more than a bubble of acid. It's a big-ass barrel of acid. Also have to figure what the DC for that is. I don't know. I guess 15 is usually my go-to. And we could throw the Sword Wraith Warrior up there, too, as like their one just really tough archer guy who could be pretty nasty. I mean, the interesting thing is none of these enemies are going to leave the castle. That's the players have to get in. None of these guys have to get out. And they're not going to be goaded into it. They're undead. I don't know how much personality I should give them. Like, how much are they enslaved to the whim of the dragon? They probably have their own personality mostly, except the dragon can, like, just snap his fingers and puppeteer them, I guess, or at least command them to do whatever. A Unicron, Megatron situation. I've summoned you here for a purpose. No one summons Megatron. It pleases me to be the first. I've made it to the end of the stat blocks that are included in here. So yeah, I could just reuse if I use the Sword Wraith Warrior, Skeletal Minotaur. A ram off with God. That actually is a damn good idea. That's a damn good idea. Dominic Jr. Full of some good ones. I could see that going over really well with Gottwald wanting to fight a skeletal minotaur. Because maybe they had a minotaur on their crew. And that's a good halfway stat block. It's got the charge. As a kind of a mini boss. I think we could do that. I think we could definitely do that. Yeah. I like that. One Minotaur skeleton. Ah. Damn it. There's already a Minotaur skeleton here to get rid of. Wonder where it appears in the adventure. This is one thing I don't understand why Roll20 wouldn't let you just do. I guess it doesn't want you to override it right away, but just as soon as I drag it on there, just update the token, man. Oh, just example ships and crew. I guess one of the random encounters has a Minotaur skeleton on it. Alright, so delete that one. And bring that one in here. Ram off. Fabulous. Yeah, maybe somebody knew. No, I don't think this is supposed to be from ages ago, but yeah, maybe a descendant or something would be pretty fun. You know, one thing I definitely forget about is a freaking damage vulnerability to bludgeoning. Very few enemies that aren't painfully obvious, like an ice method being vulnerable to fire or something, have damage vulnerabilities. Especially the non-elemental kind. You do not see that very often. And that would make switching up weapons a lot more interesting if more, and maybe it'd be too much upkeep for the DM, but it would make having those different weapons more viable if more creatures had more of those just baseline resistances, but also vulnerabilities to kind of balance it out. Minotaur Skeleton does not have multi-attack. Obviously can hit like crazy, although I think it does get multi-attack if it does the charge, which is exactly like Gottwald has too. So whoever gets to charge each other first gets the big advantage. Oops. I can see that going off very well. Gatewold. That's fantastic. And it fits because it's a skeleton. I love it. So trying to think about like the phases we can unleash this. So phase 1 is the outside fight where we're blasting them with fire from the skeleton. Probably only like 2 though, unfortunately. The way this thing is positioned until they get to like here. I guess when do they get within 80 feet of this thing? You could always roll with disadvantage on these ones back here. All right, by the time they're actually, yeah, by the time they're like here, kind of near the top of the perpendicular to the tower, the other skeletons can start shooting them with their bows. But I would probably keep these doors closed and just force the players to like bash the doors in. I'm hoping I'm creating an interesting situation. The other thing that happens, which could totally happen and I'd be okay with, is the party immediately says, oh no, this is a terrible idea. We're going to back off completely. In fact, I realize... I should hide these until the players get a little closer. Maybe? Because right now they can even see them from down there, for example. Because I haven't... Well, the other thing I could do is make this wall dynamic lighting. Make it so they actually can't see until they get to like this point. That might be easier. I hate doing that because they could still see that there's a castle here. I just don't want to tip my hand that like there's just enemies all over this castle yet. But I don't know how obvious I should be with like, you know, you see like the red icons on the map or something. And you're like, oh no, we shouldn't go that way, or there's enemies approaching or something, versus me being able to kind of surprising the players a bit with that. But I don't know how well you'd be able to see enemies up on these battlements either. So that's an interesting topic to be had, because if they can see this, then they know, like, well, they can try to target him. And yeah, so I'm gonna hide him, I think, for now, at least on the GM layer. I think those guys are already hidden. Yeah, if I put them right there. And then once they start getting up here, that's when I'll surprise them with the catapult blast, and then I'll reveal these tokens on the map. Now that, you know, and it just, I can explain it like you've gotten close enough where you can now see there's enemies up there around the time that the barrel starts hitting. And then we can go from there. And then that will force the players to make a decision on whether they want to continue this head-on assault, which they can, or they can choose to retreat, which the enemy will not follow, and then just come up with a different plan and see, based on their spells and based on what they can see and everything, how do we assault this tower? Which I could totally see them going, like, you know, across the swamp stuff. This is all, again, you hit the water, you have to make a con save for being poisoned. You could try to climb up here with some climb saves. Like, I could try to make it a whole challenge to where they get inside. And then, you know, there's really not a good way to necessarily surprise. There's just enemies everywhere, but at least they would be in a more advantageous position to get inside. And, you know, plus there's even, yeah, and then it becomes like Assassin's Creed stuff, Ubisoft game, where you're trying to just assault a stronghold, you know, initially from being in stealth, but none of these characters are, you know, pick your Assassin's Creed character, I guess, that can get off with those instant assassination kills and keep on stealthing their way through. Instead, this is going to be a big action sequence, but I think I can get away with this because I'm not going to plan on having everybody have to fight to the death in here. Instead, it'll be, I can separate it a little bit with waves, depending on, again, where the players assault from. For sure, I can separate Bartholomew and maybe, you know, 4 of the skeletons. And then we could even make sure, like, the, I don't know, Minotaur skeleton's like back here or something. Try to create it where enemies are somewhat separated. Or I could even put a lot fewer on the map and have more of them spawn. That might actually be a better idea. I still need to get a better stairs icon. I don't know. Not been able to find a good stair token. Because the map has this like sword thing here. That's not going to work. But none of these stairs look like it's going down into darkness. So that is the problem I'm running into. But maybe the Minotaur skeleton is actually downstairs and it comes up, like, you know, in another round or two with, or maybe just by itself. And then another round we introduce, you know, Bartholomew and all the skeletons and stuff when the Minotaur skeleton might still be there. And at that point the players are being like, okay, we are really fucked here. And then we go another round or two, and then we can just cease hostilities and say, okay, the master will see you now. You've been fighting through enough of his stuff. You've seen what you're capable of. Let's have a meeting. Let's talk. Which, again, I'm picturing, the players probably not realize this, but I'm picturing like the protagonist going to visit a very dangerous mastermind individual, and they have to fight a bunch of minions to get to him. And then part of the badassness of the mastermind, and he's like snaps his fingers, and all the minions like back off, and then the, you know, protagonists get to have the meeting with the dangerous individual. So I think that'll be a fun thing to try to pull off here. If you keep one of them visible, it'll probably lure the players in. It seems like there's only one of them. We can take it out. Oh, that's interesting. Kind of thinking the opposite direction. They're like, okay, we see enemies. My worry is that the players and Mac would just be like, all right, well, I'm just gonna start sniping people like from here, and like before I'm even ever in combat and have ever done anything to the players, he just starts sniping people and taking them out. Which is their best strategy for sure, but I really don't want to give them that opportunity to do that before the castle is alerted, at least at that point. Now, if the players are trying to do something extra visibility wise, like they're summoning some kind of flying thing, or there's some kind of reconnaissance spell I'm not aware of that they have at their disposal, and realize that there's creatures up there before they make it to this point, then I will be more cavalier about showing them that information. But if they're not doing any reconnaissance work and they're just charging up this hill to meet with these undead, then that's when I'm going to plan on just kind of launching that attack at them. Possibly even with a surprise round as well. At the very least, the catapult would be a surprise round. I guess I could probably do the skeletons also and then start the combat from there. It wouldn't be too bad of a surprise. Like I think it's going to take 2 skeletons to operate the catapult, and then you've got like another 2 skeletons firing at them. Because I think the ones back here would be... I guess I could still have them shoot, but it'd be at disadvantage to fire from that far, and kind of the weird line of sight rules where I'm not sure they would even actually really have a target if we're looking at like war game rules. Cheese is a great scout, but Cheese is still terrestrial. Terrestri? I don't know how to pronounce that, but on the ground. So I don't know how well he'd be able to poke around. What you really need is the Assassin's Creed games that had like Bayek, I know, had the eagle where you could literally like talk about an amazing... I would love to make an Assassin's Creed character as a D&D character, but it's some kind of insane mix of like fighter, rogue, and ranger, I think. With having like the pet just be a pure like scout, basically. And then getting like an entire bird's eye view, literally, of the battlefield before you make your way in there. Yeah, Savra could have a lot of fun. She could send her zombies in there to absorb some blows, for sure. And of course, there is plenty of bodies in here for her to raise, although she would get only skeletons back. Terrorist trial. There you go. That's where I was trying to stumble my way through. I do love the Minotaur skeleton, though. I think that's a great idea. And I think we're going to keep things pretty simple in here. You know, I did like the idea of adding the catapult for some kind of extra, like, hey, there's now AoEs getting fired, and maybe we do that. I don't know if I want to treat that as like a layer action or as a, like, during these skeletons' turns or something that they can fire it. I'll probably keep it simple and use it as like a layer action. But like the surprise round, that would be... I don't know if I would do it again. I don't know. But that's probably the only one there. I don't know if I want to do any other traps or anything here. Otherwise, keep it pretty conventional. It's just a shit ton of skeletons. It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game where the enemy is in a way fortified position, and the players just have to deal with that. And I think I'm just creating a problem that they have to defeat. But again, this is not a fight to the death that they have to do. Even though this, unlike the Swamp Village, there is no socialization here. There's nothing. These creatures are just all red dots. They're all completely hostile to the party, and the party has to deal with it. But I don't think they will have to fight to the death here, because I do like the idea of them going slack at some point, and then the dragon kind of assuming control and talking directly to the players, basically, and saying, all right, we come in for the meeting now, and then I'll make just a little like cave map that looks like a boss fight room, but is just designed for the players to meet with the dragon, which I will hopefully get that together on Thursday. And then we can, I think, finish up. Well, I say that, but this fight will probably take us the rest of the session, if I'm being honest. You know, we've got a little bit of stuff to do with the puzzle and whatnots, but I think this whole scenario with the castle will probably take the rest of the session. And then I could see us, I'll be prepared to do the dragon scene, but I could see us not making it to the dragon until next week, actually. But we'll definitely have more to talk about for Thursday's crafting stream, because I think that is going to do it for this Monday edition of Crafting the Deep. If you enjoy the content, please do check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brandon, Genocider, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Kemp, Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, Daryl, the Railroad, Captain Woody 79, Stephanie, Andy, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Amit, Lumpy Spuds, Coin, Sharny, and Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, the Lizard Lion, Sam, Jerome, Nathan, Fasagatora, Scott, Rufus, Carolyn, Jerry, Thomas, Glenn, and Marcus. Thank you all very much for your support. And as I just said, I will see you for more crafting on Thursday. Apparently much cooler weather.